All right, guys. Hey, welcome to a late edition of BMX Coach Live. I am your host, Coach Greg Romero here, and please forgive me for having technical issues. It is completely 100% all of my fault. I take full ownership of that. Saw there was a couple of you guys waiting in the room there, and people were saying, "Hey, it keeps cutting out." And man, I take full ownership for that. I should have checked. Well, to be perfectly honest with you, I try to get greedy. I tried to stream both Facebook and YouTube simultaneously, and my inexpensive bandwidth just couldn't handle it. So, well, here we go. We're here live and running a little bit behind, and I know some of you guys. Again, it's 7:20 over here in San Diego Pacific Standard Time. So, good evening if you're over here. I know it's getting close to being bedtime if you're in the East Coast. Of course, if you're in Europe, it's probably 3 in the morning. And if you're in Australia, around Brisbane or Sydney, good afternoon. It's 2 o'clock over there, I believe. Anyways, I got a full lineup over here going. Have a couple of awesome things that I want to share with you. First off, the show, we're going to go ahead and have, we're going to talk about brand of racing. Brand of racing meaning, what is your personal brand when you're on the track? What are you known for? Are you known for being someone that's powerful, strong, confident, smooth? Me personally, I come off on the track. I like to think of my brand of racing, powerful, finesse, and also racing smart. So we're going to bring Anthony Dean on. Well, actually, I don't have him on, but I messaged him earlier, so we're going to share what his thoughts were. And I'm going to ask you and pose a question. What is your brand of racing? And I want you guys to leave the comments below. Before we get started, though, please share the video and share it on your page. And let's try to get many eyes on this as possible. Of course, my intent with this live feed is to get as many younger riders as well as newer riders learning more about performance in the sport. And that way they can enjoy the sport even more. I know in our sport, we always speak about creating more tracks and bringing more members in. And, my angle is when it comes to the membership business, let's focus on the members we do have because it's so hard. It's so hard to get new members into the door. So my goal is to add more value to the members that we already have, work on the retention of our sport, and therefore, help prosper and bring more wealth to the ecosystem of the BMX racing industry. So make sure you guys share that. That is my pure intent of being here today. And I'm grateful for the opportunity for you guys to be here. And I'm grateful to share my knowledge to you as well. Also on the list, I'm going to talk about 3 secrets, 3 of my personal secrets on improving your second pedal out of the gate. We'll talk about that. And of course, the USA BMX had a UCI World Championships qualifier in Houston this past weekend, and I watched a few races and I gathered some insights, and that's going to lead us to our guest that's going to be on our show, a guy named Tyler Brown, who was down on the ground over there. He raced. He's going to give us his insight on the world's track. We're going to talk about different things that we're seeing on the track as pertains to BMX. Your BMX performance. And then, of course, we're going to go ahead and talk about 3 things that younger riders can do while they're training. Whether you're at the track, away from the track, on the bike, off the bike, we're going to cover those things. And that's going to lead us to our last segment, the best segment, which is the Ask Coach G segment. So while you guys are listening, please ask questions as it pertains to BMX racing and training performance in the comments below. And I'll do my best to get to each and every one of you. That doesn't always work out, but again, I am grateful for the opportunity to answer your questions. So please make sure you guys ask as many good contextual questions as you can. Give me more context when you do ask your questions. Don't just say, "Hey, how can I improve my gait?" Well, ask me, tell me, where are you trying to improve? Are you trying to improve your timing, your acceleration, your stance, your second, third pedal? Give me more context on what you're trying to improve on. That being said, let's go ahead and roll the intro, and we're going to go ahead and get this show on the road. First thing I want to speak about is your brand of racing. What does your brand of racing consist of? When I think of brand of racing, look, I don't think about if you think about brand, right? Like think about like Apple, Nike, Coca-Cola. Brands give you a feeling. So when you see yourself on the track, what is the feeling not only do you get out of your racing, but perhaps what is the competitors? What are their feelings of your racing, right? When I raced back in the day, I don't know, I think it was about 25 years ago in the top of the pro class, there was two guys that I would say were pretty much the gatekeepers of the class at the time because they were winning a lot. Today in BMX, I think the two guys that are winning a lot are going to be, in America, it's going to be Connor Fields, Corbin Schraw, and then, of course, Nick Keeman. Back in my day, there was two guys that were always dominating and winning. A French guy by the name of Christophe Levesque, and then another guy by the name of John Pearce. He was an American out of Houston. And some of you guys may recognize those names, and if you don't, hey, I forgive you. Please forgive me too. Anyways, back then, the brand of racing that Christophe Levesque brought, his style was strength and power, and that's it. Get the whole shot and run away from the pack. One of his weaknesses was he could not battle in the turns. And he didn't carry much speed through the turns, and he certainly had a hard time coming from behind. So his brand of racing really relied on one component: power, speed, getting down to the first corner first, and just run away. John Pearce, on the other hand, he was a guy that I would say probably had the biggest Swiss Army knife of all the competitors on the track. That meant he could hole shot, he could win from 8th place, he could win mid-pack. The guy could do it all. And his brand of racing was, I would say, mentally he was really hungry, number one. Number two, he was well-rounded. He wasn't particularly the best in any category as far as strength, power, skills, racing smarts, aggression. I would say that he would rank out of a scale of 1 to 10 and 8 in all categories. So he was well-rounded in all of those areas. So he was a really hard guy to race against because, his brand was really all about aggression. Okay, he didn't really care about making friends on the track, and he would do whatever it took to get to the front of the pack before the finish line, right? Which is the goal at the end of the day. So I posed a question: what is your brand when it comes to racing? Okay, so think of 3 things that may identify with your strengths, whether it's a physical strength, a mental strength, an emotional strength. Hey man, I know some guys, their main strength is just having emotional flexibility, emotional strength. They don't get too high, they don't get too down. And so think about what that is. Leave a comment below. I would love to see what your brand of racing is. Give me 3 ingredients. We're going to go ahead and share Anthony Dean's. Hey guys, I have a question. What would it do for you if you could enhance your power out of the gate, enhance your sprint speed down the first straight, enhance your skills, enhance your mental performance mind state? What would that do for your racing or your kids' racing? If you're seeing the value of enhancing your BMX performance, consider joining the community of BMX Training Pro and get the same access my Olympic athletes have enjoyed, as well as thousands of BMXers all over the world. Some members use the access to improve their gate start techniques. Some also use the access to keep them motivated to train, and you'll find your reason when you gain access and join BMX Training Pro today. All right, guys. Hey, thank you so much on the feedback on the audio. I recognize that when I had Anthony's Instagram post up here, yeah, the audio was not synced up to this, so please forgive me. I probably said a bunch of stuff, and at the end of the day, what I was talking about was just working on your brand of racing, right? Working on the 3 ingredients that identify you as a racer, and of course, bring in those 3 ingredients when you show up to the track, and don't forget about it. Because I think what happens is racers tend to think how they're going to race. They show up. It might be something that they saw, heard, or felt, and it shifts them out of state. They forget who they are and who they are as a brand, and then things may go downhill. So I think it's important for you guys to identify the 3 things. And of course, Anthony said here, he spoke about strength, aggression, and mental. So strong. Being strong is really key for Anthony. That's part of his brand. That's going to be something that he flexes on his competitors. Of course, being aggressive. So Anthony style, what I spoke about earlier when you guys weren't hearing me, was Anthony style. He comes out a little bit low out of the gate, and he comes out a little bit later than normal, but he comes out super aggressive with a lot of strength. That's his style. That's his brand. And of course, mentally, he's really strong. He likes to look at himself and feel himself being really strong mentally, whether it's a good lap. He doesn't really get up too high or down too low. So whether it's a good lap or if it's a bad lap, mentally he's going to show up as soon as he puts that helmet on and clips in every time. So wanted to keep moving forward. Let's go to the 3 secrets on how to improve your second pedal out of the gate. You guys ready? All right, watch the lights. Hey, BMX coach Greg Romero here, and today we're going to talk about 3 things to improve your second pedal out of the gate. Number 1, the best way to improve your second pedal out of the gate is doing opposite foot box sprints away from the track. Opposite foot box sprints will enable you to replicate the exact position that you need to be in with the shoulders over the handlebar grips and your head down, and just simply smashing that second pedal as strong and as fast as you can. Now, when you do these, you want to make sure that your shoulders are over the handlebar grips, and that way you're forced to be in the exact position that you need to be in for your second pedal. At first, it may seem awkward, but you want to do as many as you can and get used to it, and that way you can master it to where when you get to the track, your second pedal feels natural. Number 2, doing unilateral exercises. Whether you're a kid doing body weight exercises or an older guy in the gym lifting weights, doing unilateral exercises like single-legged squats, lunges, step-ups will isolate each leg to perform a triple extension as if you're pedaling on the bike, as opposed to doing a bilateral exercise such as a squat where you don't get to isolate each leg. What this will do will neurologically improve the specific demand and also improve the stability muscles on the left side and the right side of the individual leg. Number 3, doing core work. The limiting factor to getting into the proper acceleration position for your second pedal is usually your core strength. If your core is strong and you can learn how to engage it properly, you can prevent your hips moving back and forth and enable yourself to get into the proper acceleration position and hold yourself properly through your core, and that way you get an efficient and effective second pedal. Again, those are 3 easy things to improve your second pedal out of the gate. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to email me, info@bmxtraining.com. Again, thank you so much for being a member at BMX Training Pro. I'll see you guys at the races. I saw the Houston race this past weekend. USA BMX did a great job streaming the races, and you know, just watching some of the races, watching what was happening on the track for some of the amateurs down the first straight, saw that there were some really big jumps, really fast 5-meter starting hill, and some of the younger guys had some issues with that. I think it was a second double. I think in like 9 to 10 expert, if you could jump that double, that's going to be really key in terms of keeping the momentum going and separating from the pack. Another observation that I saw was the turns were really wide, and I noticed that a lot of riders were unnecessarily going wide. So when you have asphalt corners, you definitely want to test out how your tires adhere traction on the track, and see how tight, and challenge how tight you can go in corners, because at the end of the day, the tighter the corner, the tighter the radius, the less distance that you have to carry, as well as, look, you're not gonna leave the door open for anyone to get under you. So those were a couple different observations, and let's go through some of this footage here real quick. Right here, the 13-year-old girl's expert demonstrated a lot of pedaling in that first corner. Noticed about 10 full cranks from the first corner going into the second straight. See that kid jump that jump there and got separation. But then check this out. The kid in the lead, he's really wide, right? And look at the guy in second. I think that's Gomlicki, the former world champion. And he just came under no problem. So you guys really have to pay attention when it comes to asphalt corners. That was one thing that I've noticed that this track really exploited, was some people just unnecessarily went too wide. Another thing I noticed were younger kids trying to sneak a pedal here and there on the rhythm section, and it seemed like it was slowing them down. We'll go over that with my guest coming up Tyler Brown. We'll discuss a little bit more. Here are the 16 experts. That jump going in that first turn is weird, ain't it? Like they're manually on top of a double and it just doesn't flow. It's really strange. I wonder if they're going to fix that. But yeah, those were some of the things I saw. At the track over at the Houston track. And so, yeah, really looking forward to watching the racing going down in Houston and seeing how you guys prepare. And of course, I'm going to open it up. I'm going to open up some training plans. If you guys need any training, getting in preparation for Houston, hit me up. I have some World Championship training plans coming up. All right, so let's go to the next guest. This guest is a dear friend of mine. He's a guy that just does it all. A guy named Tyler Brown. Well, you know what? I'll just go ahead and roll to this, and I'll see you guys in a minute. All right, guys. So welcome to BMX Coach Live Guest Spotlight. Our guest today is Tyler Brown, and of course, BMX Coach Live is brought to you by BMX Training Pro. Make sure you guys go over there and sign up and become a member and win more races. So Tyler, we got Tyler Brown over here. Tyler is a two-time UCI World Champion, two-time Vet Pro. He's a track operator. He's a husband. He is a father, and he's an assistant coach with USA Cycling. What else are Tyler? Did I miss anything else?
Oh man, yeah, I run the track. I train kids. I work for USA Cycling. I race. I try to do it all. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. But yeah, a little bit of everything, man. Right
on, man. Well, I aspire to be you someday because, man, you're one of those guys that you see something, you just have the belief that you could do it. And so tell me more about that. Like, you just seem to, like, you're able to see something. You're like, you know what, I could do that. What does it take for you to get that confidence and that belief for you to just jump on the path and start taking action?
That's a really good question. And I think that's something that I learned from BMX racing as a pro that I've been able to apply in more to my day-to-day life. I think number one, it's not having that fear of failure. I think a lot of times people get too caught up in what might happen negative-wise instead of just going for it. And the biggest thing that I found out is action is going to trump everything. So no matter what, when I put myself in awkward situations in life and more importantly in business, the thing that's so far gotten me out pretty much every single time is just the ability to just keep going and keep pushing and keep taking action and figuring it out as I go. So I definitely don't know what I'm doing or how I'm going to get there most of the time, but I know that I can keep working towards that goal no matter what it is.
Dude, I love it. You remind me of my mentor who taught me about Richard Branson, who is the owner of Version. And the way Richard Branson takes action is that he just jumps down the path, starts taking action, doesn't spend a whole lot of time doing research, and he just figures out what he needs to do as he's on the path. So kudos to you, man. And so, you know, another reason why I brought you on today, Tyler, is you recently raced over at the Houston track where they're going to be hosting the UCI World Championship. So I wanted to kind of pick your brain, since you have so much experience at the pro level as well as a coach. Give me your thoughts about the overall feel of the track that's going to be hosting the UCI World Championships in Houston this year.
Yeah, they did a good job. They made a little bit of track changes from last year to this year, and I like the track changes that they made. I think they made it a little bit safer for just them as a local program as a whole because they do have to build that local program. But they did make stuff flow a little bit better and things like that. So I was excited about the track changes, and I think it's going to be a really good World Championship this year.
Cool. Can you give me some tips? Can you give our viewers some tips and say, like, hey, how does the first straight feel? You know, like, and how does it feel to you for a guy like going your speed? And then, of course, what do you think about how it's going to play out for like younger riders?
Definitely, I agree, and that was one of the things I wanted to talk about too. I think number one, you've got to, as a rider, pretty much in any age, you got to be okay jumping because there is a couple things down that first straightaway that you really do need to jump, and the older that you get, you're going to have to jump a little bit more. Yes. And number one, you've got to work on that leg speed for that track because it does have a pretty big start hill, and you are going pretty quick in between the jumps. So one of the things that I found is just it's really going to benefit the riders that can kind of work on that overspeed stuff and be prepared for fast leg speed down that first straightaway.
Yeah, man, I totally agree. I remember racing Rock Hill, and I remember I prepared with you, and there were some extra things that I was doing on the side when I was at home. Was doing a lot of longer sprints, super steep, like 7% grade, And I remember just going as long as I could because I remember the speed, not only the speed down the first straight and into the turn, but it seemed like there's a lot of leg speed to be had, especially on the Houston track coming out of that first turn heading into the second straight. Am I wrong?
Yeah, you're right. The turns are really wide open, so there's a lot of pedaling.
Yeah.
So once you get that leg speed going down the first straightaway, then you're going to have to be comfortable really opening up out of the first turn. Beyond that, there's not quite as much pedaling except for out of the corners and things, but you definitely do have some pretty wide open turns.
Yeah, that's what I saw, especially with kids. There was a lot of pumping, not a whole lot of jumping. And I also saw a lot of kids that are also capable of just pumping really well, being that there was so much space in between the jumps. It seemed like they were trying to sneak in a pedal here and there. What is your take about sneaking in pedals in between jumps, especially pumping, using the pumping technique? Does that help or does that hinder momentum through the jumps?
Yeah, it depends on the track and the straightaways, but most of the time I'm not a fan of sneaking in pedals in between. I think if you can't fit in a full revolution, I think you're going to be better off getting a good pump in and then trying to pedal where you can. Because if you're trying to do those little half pedals, you're not really pedaling and you're not really pumping. So you're just kind of halfway doing a couple things. I think you're going to be better off getting a full pump in when you can and getting a full pedal in when you can.
I agree, man. Thank you so much. Because, at the end of the day, it's like, a full pedal revolution requires on average about 15 feet. So if you're going to do a half pedal, that's about, you need 7 feet, right? So if you're working with less than 5, then it doesn't really make a sense. It doesn't really make any sense to even try to get a half pedal in. I like what you said. And I'm a firm believer that jumps are there for you to create speed, not to stop speed. And I think pedaling, trying to sneak in a pedal here and there is definitely going to hinder your speed. Anyways, moving on real quick, and we're coming up on our mark for you to get going. I know you have a busy day. Thank you so much for being here. Wanted your 3 best training tips for a younger rider. Your first one being at the track.
So number 1 training tip at the track, I want riders, riders in USA in particular, I think focus on gates, which is obviously really important to do. But I think the number 1 important thing would be to also focus on doing track work, meaning if that be half laps, 3/4 laps, things like that. Like, don't always use the gate. So remember to ride the track, kids. Don't just focus on nothing but gates.
Okay, awesome. Give me what's your best training tip for a kid at home? Because we don't spend a whole lot of time at the track, right? We're very limited in terms of track access. Well, I know, some places might have the track in the backyard and it's always public access, but most tracks in the world are not always like that. So what is going to be the best training tip for a kid at home on the bike specifically?
On the bike specifically, I'm going to say sprints. I think even as a professional rider, I think the number 1 thing that you can do besides riding the track would be sprints. If I had to even ditch the gym and all that stuff, my number 1 thing that I would do away from the track would be sprints.
Cool. Awesome. And then give me another training tip for a rider that's at home training off the bike. What would you recommend as it pertains to a younger rider?
For the younger rider, one of the biggest things that I think that they can lack would be just core strength. And when you're coming out of the gate, being able to keep your core strong and hold your sprint position, something that me and you worked on a lot together when we were working together, especially leading up to Rock Hill and when I was elite and things like that, is keeping that core strong. So you're going to be able to accelerate and hold yourself in that position. And one other thing I want to slip in, not just my 1 training tip, but just consistency. I think some riders get caught up in trying to do too much. I think consistency is going to be the main thing. Even if you only do 2 training sessions a week away from the track, just do those 2 every single week.
Well, there you have it, guys. Consistency and action, 2 things that you could take from Tyler Brown's work ethic as a world champion, as a national champion. Tyler Brown, thank you so much for joining us. I'm grateful for you to be on our show, and we'll try to catch up with you right before the World Championships and see how your preparation's going.
I look forward to it. Thanks for having me on, G.
Right on. Take care. Thank you.
Bye.
All right, guys. I hope you guys like that. I had every intention to try to do something live like that, but I just don't trust my technical savvy to do anything like that. So we pre-recorded that on Sunday, and yeah, looking forward to bringing more guests on the show. So if you guys have any guests in mind that you would love for me to tap into, please leave a comment below. Also, I'm looking for questions that I can ask in the Ask Coach G section, which is going to be the last segment heading into the show. I'm looking on the comments, and I don't see a whole lot of questions as it pertains to BMX racing and training performance. So if there's only a few, I'll go as deep as I can into those particular questions. Please forgive me. I do see that there's like 50 comments, but for some reason I can't access all of them. I can only see like 5 or 6 at a time. I just recently downloaded the Facebook app on my phone, and I saw that they totally updated it since the last time that I deleted it off my phone. That's just a habit of something I was trying to change in my life, just trying to wake up and have more of a productive life without getting on social media, whether it's IG or Facebook. So I deleted the apps off my phone, and I go on the browser. But I see that things are a little bit weird, and they completely changed the app. So please forgive me. If you asked a question, make sure that you repeat it. What did you guys think about Tyler being as a guest, man? He is awesome. He offered a lot of nuggets there. For me, just as a person, one of the main things that he said to me, which was so awesome, was he doesn't have any fear of failure. Look, he's just going to take action, and taking action is, like he said, trumps everything. The one thing I've noticed with Tyler, being a dear friend of mine, is that if he sees that he could do it, he's just going to do it. He doesn't need anyone's cosign. He doesn't spend a whole lot of time asking questions from other people. Hey, what do you think? Can I do it or not? Tyler just takes action, man. So if anyone could take anything from Tyler, is his ability to just jump on the path, take action, and remove all fear of failure. And one of the things I wanted to add with Tyler, I don't know if I said it in the spotlight there. There is no such thing as failure, only feedback, and I think that is key. And if you can go in with that mentality, then it's gonna pretty much remove the blocks that prevent a lot of us from taking action, right? Because we always think about criticism. What are people going to think? I don't want to embarrass myself if I fail. No one really knows that you fail. You're the only one that knows. So if you could change the way you're labeling I don't want to say failure, but not meeting your expectations. Okay, well then you need to identify what is it that you did right first and foremost, and then what are some things that you could have done differently? And I would say that it's very important, because I see a lot of parents on this live stream. I think it's really important for parents to, first and foremost, when it comes to communicating with your rider, it's always good to maintain that rapport, right? Maintain that rapport by simply saying, hey man, I really love the way you did this, this, and that. Find 3 things, all right? Find 3 things I did well, and then give them an opportunity of, ask them, hey, so what do you think you could have done differently? Don't point out that they did something wrong. Let them point it out. Empower them. And I think that you guys will enjoy your racing a little bit more during the day, and also as a relationship between father and son, for the rest of his journey on the BMX bike. So, those were some things that I established with my father, because it was never easy, growing up, especially in NorCal with the boss team that I was on. There was a lot of criticism. If I didn't do good, man, it was just like I was gonna get, I was gonna hear about it. So, but anyways, I really think in today's age, the meaning of communication is a response that you get. So, be resourceful in the way that you communicate. Find a way for you to have that emotional and mental flexibility, okay? Having behavior flexibility, not getting up too high, not getting down too low. And if you can maintain that even keel of behavior flexibility, then you're going to be able to communicate to your younger rider better. And I would say that goes with coaches. That's pretty much my style, and that's the way I've been able to, influence my riders to influence themselves, and I think that's key.
Stay focused, get ready now. For real, get ready now.
Nitro with the nice flow.
Stay focused, get ready now. For real, get ready now. Let's go. Stay focused, hear the heat come. Concentrate to the sound of the beat drum. Start it up, take it back now. Check it out. This is how it's going down.
True story, man. I almost got in trouble for flying a drone over at the Olympic Training Center. All right, so we're back, and I'm going to go ahead and just start with some of these questions. Let's go to a question I saw by Don Mulville. How you doing, Don? I'm 5'10 and feel more comfortable with 180 cranks. Everyone says I should be using 175s. What do you think? I don't know, Don. What do you think? I'm around 5'10, and it's really weird. I either go shorter or I go longer. 180s for me always felt really weird, especially running a basic gear such as a 4416. I always liked 177s or I liked 182s. If you could spin 180s efficiently and effectively all the way from the gate all the way to the finish line, then man, 180s are going to work. 175s, you're going to need a little bit more torque, a little bit more strength coming out of the gate. But once you get on top of the gear, you're going to feel like you have more gears to shift. And that's a good thing too, especially when it comes to track speed, as well as, feeling like you have a little bit more resistance under the pedals, especially coming out of turns or even speed after the first jump. Honestly, stick with the 180s. I think you're going to get a better gate. You're going to get a better second, third pedal. Just maintain working on your top end leg speed. That's the key, Don. Thank you so much for that question. Let's go to the next one. Jared Vaughter. Jared, thank you so much for asking the question. Sprints for younger riders, length, and how many at a time? Oh, dude, check it out. I got something for you. Let me clear this layer. Let me bring this up. I did this last week. You're not going to see my face, but I'll talk over this. Check it out, man. Recommended sprint training lengths. Now, when it comes to sprints, I don't really... If you're 6 years old or you're 60 years old, sprints are sprints, man. Because at the end of the day, a gate is a gate. Acceleration to the first jump is acceleration to the first jump. It doesn't matter if you're 6 years old or 60 years old. So when it comes to training, I think sprints, you have to attack it either, as a AA pro or as a 6 and under. They're all the same. So at the end of the day, if you look over here to the left, acceleration intent. If you want to improve your acceleration to the first jump, the entirety of the first straight, or acceleration to the second turn, kind of like what I spoke about with Tyler Brown preparing for the Worlds, you'll see the respective sprint length. So acceleration to the first jump, go all out, 4 to 6 full cranks. If you're looking to improve to the first jump, you're doing sprints that are 15 to 20 cranks long. Look, man, that's just way too long, because you're going to be burning up a lot of unnecessary fuel to recover. And when you're burning up a lot of unnecessary fuel and you go back to repeat that effort, you're just not going to have the ATP energy, which is, getting fully scientific here. You're not going to have that energy to produce maximum output repetitively every time. So if we go back to the chart here, hold on, let me clear this layer. If you go back to the chart here, acceleration of the first jump, 4 to 6 full cranks, 2 minutes rest, repeat again. Go until the kid gets tired. If you're looking for power endurance, go 15 to 20 full cranks. Make sure you guys wear a helmet and sprint in a bicycle friendly area. All right. Let's go to the next question. If you guys want to see that again, make sure you watch the replay there. Don Mulville, I've seen a lot of racers hitting their brakes down the first straight. Oh, he's talking in regards to Worlds, the Houston track. Yeah, those jumps are big. I mean, the first straight is really fast coming out of the gate. You're carrying a lot of speed to that first jump, and I think, I get asked all the time, especially younger riders. From parents with younger riders, and I think what a common thing that happens with younger riders is, when they're going fast down the first straight, is that their rear end, when they hit the jump, their rear end kind of flops like this, and all of a sudden they're just kind of riding this nose wheelie through the middle of the jump, and sometimes they squirrel out and crash. And the best thing that you can do is just, you got to push down on the handlebars and get the seat back behind the seat. You got to squat down. You got to tell your kid to try to get your butt to the rear tire, try to scrape that tire. Don't have him scrape it, but that's what he needs to visualize to ensure he's doing the right technique and keep that bike low. And that way he's not hitting the brakes so much. If not, man, sometimes you just need to have him hit the send button. All right, what other questions do we have? Adam Scoggins. Adam, he's great, man. Adam, you're always asking good questions. How can I get my 11-year-old to hold his line and not let others push him around, especially in turns? Well, it depends. Is it something that he sees? Is it something that he's intimidated by? Perhaps, I don't know where he's looking, right? So when he's entering a corner, if he's covering the inside, he needs to look for where the exit is. And maybe perhaps you guys need to strategize and, look at video or, take a picture of the turn and strategize where he needs to be coming out of the turn, going into the turn, coming out of the turn. And that way he holds his line. He's committed to that line every time. Another way you could practice that is simply by doing flat ground figure 8 turns. I don't have any videos here to show you that, but yeah, flat ground figure 8 turns, because what that does, it teaches you to look ahead as you're beginning the turn. And I think that's very important when it comes to racers. You want to look where you want to end up, and that being a goal. And perhaps that will get him to hold his line and to get there as fast as possible. If someone bumps him, so be it. But perhaps you guys could do figure 8 turns in a parking lot in a safe area, and maybe you could jump on the bike with him and try to push him around and teach him to hold his line. There you go. If you don't have a bike, then you can run around with him, just follow him. Ben Troya, my man Ben, how are you doing, man? What's your question here? Greg, what do you recommend for drills, exercises to get a rider pedaling deeper into obstacles at high speed, like when I had to hit Seymour, like when hitting the first obstacle after turn 1? I would say longer sprints, man. Longer sprints. I would do jump sprints, actually. So you could be rolling at, say, 5-10 miles an hour, right? Pedals coasting, and then boom, just hit it hard. Hit it hard as hard as you can, and place another visual. Put another obstacle. Say, I don't know, five full cranks after that, and practice pedaling deep into the cone. I think that's what you're asking me. Adrian Garzone, what should I do? What should I do to not open so wide on the turns? You got to practice a tight radius. I used to practice the tightest radius that I can do without sliding out. Does that make sense? So you got to practice tight radius corners. Practice figure 8 turns on asphalt and see how tight you can go. See how far you can lean the bike over without breaking traction. Definitely. Aaron Greenreich, please forgive me if I did not pronounce that correctly. Aaron, worked on gates last weekend, noticed a lot better racers had their pedals pretty level. They were in clips. I'm in flats. Does it make more sense for my front pedal to be a bit higher than it would if I was clipped in? Aaron, that's a great question. Yes and no. I think at the end of the day, what's going on is, well, I have to say yes more than no, right? Because when you're clipped in, you can, by default, not have to worry about bringing that second pedal around in terms of trying to keep your trying to keep your foot on the pedal as you're ending the first half stroke, getting in the second half, right? All you have to do is just focus on smashing, extending through the hip, knee, and ankle joint, right? To get that second pedal around. When you're on flats, you have to use your abductors and your adductors, which is your inner thigh and your outer glute muscle, just to maintain your foot being on the pedal as you're coming around. And so, yes, it's definitely different, right? And I think with flat pedals, you're going to have to get more out of the first stroke. So it does make sense for your crank to be a little bit higher, and that way you get a little bit more extension and you stay with the guys that have clips. I hope that makes sense, right? So you're getting more extension out of that first stroke. So if you're going to have your cranks the same parallel, if you will, with the rider next to you, and they're clipped in, they're going to get in their second pedal faster, and you're not going to get much out of your first pedal. So if you have it a little bit higher, you're going to be able to maintain because you're going to be in the stroke a little bit longer. I hope that makes sense. And so, the key is for you is that, yeah, dude, you're going to have to practice that. Practice some gait, practice some box sprints, opposite foot with flat pedals, and that will enable you to get into the second pedal a little bit more effectively because you do not have the ability to disregard the abductor and adductor muscles to maintain that foot on the pedal. Hope that makes sense. That's a tricky question, man. Had me thinking there. Jason Chang, how you doing, man? Thanks for showing up. I know you always tell me, man, I wish you would have told me, and I told you and you showed up, so congratulations. Jason asked, would training be different for an older rider just due to age? Like with your knowledge, and if you were 20 again, let me hit Seymour. Would you do the same things, or does an older body need something different? Yeah, great question, Jason. First and foremost, I believe that older riders can do pretty much everything, almost everything under the sun, as far as all the fundamental components that a AA pro or an elite Olympic caliber racer is doing. Getting into the gym, working heavy maximum strength, working on power, working on plyometrics, working on flexibility, stability. Flexibility and stability and a balance of supporting cast muscles are more key with an older rider. Younger riders can predominantly get away with working on primary muscles, and I think at the older that we get, we need all the muscles to be working, because one thing that's happening is that we tend to lose flexibility. We tend to lose range of motion. So working on the stability muscles like adductors, abductors, working on a lot of different core angles, not just working on linear, straightforward, sit-up type, but even more like twisting, crunching type angles on the core. And not only that, I don't know where you're going with this, but I think at the end of the day, it's more important for you guys, for older guys, to focus on recovery. Recovery is where we're going to make our gains. So train, rest. And, back in the day, I had a chiropractor who was a dear friend of mine who I used to bring to the races, and he would give me adjustments all the time. He'd be like, dude, you're overtraining. And of course, the pro in me was like, well, dude, I got to train because I got this big contract. I got to go out there and try to smoke Christophe Levesque, and John Purse is going to try to take me out next weekend. And this is every weekend. So I'm thinking more is better. And he's like, dude, you need to recover. You need to work on stability muscles. You need to work on this. You got to work on that. And so as a young, if I could do it all over again, I would definitely focus a little bit more on recovery. Nothing's different. I think at the end of the day, back then, I was doing gates, I was working on track speed, I was working on skills, I was going to the gym, I was working on sprints. I think back then, racing was a little bit more different in terms of the technicality. Tracks were a little bit more opened up back then, so sprint training and power endurance were a little bit more of a factor. Today, you need more precise power coming out of the gate. You only get about 5 to 6 full cranks, which is about 90 feet, to display your power and generate and create separation between you and the guy next to you. And so, yeah, I would probably go a little bit more specific today. That's about it. Ryan Hernandez, how you doing, man? I see that you're in the building. Larry Robert Rabinowitz. Please forgive me. I always try to at least make an attempt to pronounce the entire name. Larry asked, is it worth keeping my 8-year-old on flats for practice and local races this year? He does run clips for state and nationals only. Yeah, man, I think it's totally worth it, because at the end of the day, he's still developing as a rider. When you're growing, your skills are also changing. Your power curve is starting to change. And I think it's okay for you to continuously keep him on the flats. And that way, when he's getting faster through strength and power and developing physically, that his skills also develop with that strength and power. So definitely keep those flats on for practice and racing. If he's already doing that. Listen, I used to coach Corbin Sherraw, and back in the day, I didn't coach him when he was younger, but he was one of the last kids in his class when clip pedals became popular to move over to clips. He stayed on flat pedals till he was 12 years old. And look at the way he's riding his bike today. Effortless and yeah, just super easy, right? Let's keep moving. Great question. And I would definitely, right before the National, I would say definitely the week of the National, go ahead and throw him back on his clips and have him do some gate starts with the clips, have him do racing with the clips. And that way you're still programming that speed of discharge, which is the power component, which is needed in terms of programming neurologically. I know that was probably a bunch of mumbo jumbo, but at the end of the day, to make it more simple for you, you want to program the speed component of his pedaling. So definitely throw the clips back on the week of racing and you'll be okay. Sean Gifford asked, my daughter is 9 and just advanced to intermediate. Hey, congratulations, man. I know what that's like. This past weekend, she got pulled hard in the first straight. Are there any exercises or practice you would recommend in order to get her stronger on the pedals? Yeah, like in terms of like working on her leg speed and her power. If she just moved up and she advanced, listen, you're going against riders that they're adapted to coming out of the gate faster. They're adapted to the speed of the first straight. They're adapted to pedaling after first jumps where you require a lot of top end leg speed. So definitely she needs to start considering doing some sprint training. Sprint training is key, working on acceleration, but I would say even for your daughter at 9 years old, just working on top end leg speed, right? So just working on, say, like a jump sprint, what I would call a jump sprint. So have her coast, take 2 cones, take a cone and place the other cone, say, I don't know, 8 full cranks away. That's a good number for her. And have her roll into the first cone at about 10 miles an hour, pedals coasting, and just jump and accelerate into that cone all the way to the next cone and try to get her leg speed up and keep working on that leg speed. I think that's going to be key for her. And let me know how that works out. Earlier in the video, if you just got on, we talked about recommended sprint lengths. It looks something like this. All right, so there's a quick snapshot there. All right, hope that works out. All right, well, let's see. I think that's about it. It's 8:15. Let me see if I can grab another question here. I know George talked about the first jump at Worlds. George, tell me more about your kid. You said that he struggled in Houston but still qualified. Hey, man, tell your kids congrats. That's awesome, man. Got to work on the first straight. So maybe George is talking about the gate. Maybe he's talking about leg speed. Maybe he's talking about the technicality that's being demanded on those big jumps. Maybe perhaps he's struggling with that first jump, man, where it's like it's so big that it's stressing the kids out. I remember when I was 8 years old, or I think it was 10 years old, and we used to travel. I started traveling to nationals, and I would be on the plane, and I would just pray to the BMX gods, like, oh man, I hope there isn't some double that's too big for me to jump, but I gotta jump it. And so I think it's really important for kids that are going to Houston to continuously work on sending larger jumps, jumps that are challenging, and work on his confidence, George. I think that's really key. And give him a plan B, like work on the technique of making sure that he keeps the wheels low to the ground and he's not doing a front wheelie, if he doesn't jump the jump. Work on things like that, and work on his top end leg speed, work on his ability to reaccelerate, because that's the problem when these kids are hitting these first jumps and they're not jumping. They're slowing down. Their momentum is slowing down quite a bit, and so they have to reaccelerate again. So work on some jump sprints, man. There's all kinds of ways you guys can continuously work on that first straight. Any more questions? All right, guys. Well, hey, thank you so much for showing up. I'm so grateful for the opportunity to be here, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity to see so many of you guys here. This is awesome. See Al Roybal, he says Mountain View parking lot figure eight, so good. Yes, Al, hope you're doing well. Glenn Surridge, hope you're doing well, my man. He's a coach out of Australia. See a bunch of guys coming in. Terry T. George says he was hesitant at the bottom of the hill, didn't like the transition. That affected his speed on the rest of the straight. Yeah, George, so I would say I would try to get in his model of the world and find out, is it something that he saw or felt? What's keeping him from pedaling all the way through the transition? Is his body positioning getting weird? Does he feel like he's getting unweighted in the pedals? Because that's another thing. And also keep in mind, consider G-force too. I mean, you know, I think we measured it a long time ago, back in 2007, 2008, when the Olympics were being introduced into the games, and we were trying to quantify G-force, and we noticed using the G-cog, it was a power meter back in the day. We measured close to 3 times your body weight, the force that your body was taking at the bottom of the transition. And so that was on an 8-meter hill. And of course, you know, the faster you're going, the more G-force you're going to pull at that bottom of that pump transition. So do me a favor, man. Send me a clip. You're good with video. Go to the feed, send me a clip of your kid racing on that first straight. I'd love to see what he's doing, and maybe I can see what's going on. Perhaps maybe the kids are experiencing some kind of big load. And if they are, maybe perhaps we integrate some body squats, right, to take on that load of that G-force if they are pumping. If they're not pumping and they're pedaling through it, then that's a whole nother story. If he's not committing, then we need to find out for what purpose is he not committing. Hope that makes sense. It's so hard when I'm reading a question. You did a good job of giving me context, but it's hard for me to, you know, I have to mind read the context, right? So, well, cool, guys. 8:15, 8:20. I haven't eaten. I know I started late. Please forgive me. Again, thank you so much for the opportunity for me to help you guys out, be a mentor and guide and share with you guys. Thank you so much for showing up. I'm glad someone showed up. I'm glad someone asked questions. And again, I cannot be grateful enough. This is so exciting. I'm looking forward to next week. I'll keep working on new and exciting guests. So again, if you guys have any comments about my feed here, about the live show, leave a comment below. Let me know what you guys want to see next week in terms of a guest and what we can talk about. Been trying to get Connor Fields on, but that guy, he is very, very busy. He has a full schedule over at the University of Las Vegas, and he's trying to defend his Olympic gold medal. I think that's about it. That's all I have to say about that. Thank you so much for showing up. I'm grateful for the opportunity. I'll see you guys next week, and I am out.